gorgeous people, it's Amber. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I took this plus size pair of houndstooth print pants and added them as an extension to already existing dress that I had. I used the bottom of the dress in a previous DIY, the little, I don't know, the ripply part of the dress. I ripped it off and added it to a shirt that I needed additional length on. So this is the remaining part of that dress, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do with it now? Because I'm not just gonna, not use it. That's just not how I work. So I found these awesome pair of houndstooth print pants at Gabe's for $4, and I thought, yes, these will be fabulous. I wanted to do some awesome billowy sleeves on a shirt, and I thought that the top part of the pant would be perfect for that. So you're going to see how I did all of that in the video. And without further ado, let's just get into this thing. Okay guys, materials are in the description box below. I start by thinking I'm going to seam rip this out like I do everything else. So I grab my seam ripper and I start taking the seam out as you would normally do. So, working through it, thinking that things are sort of kind of working. And then I realized, yeah, they're totally not. So I'm like, okay, let's try another method. So I grab my little scissors and I'm just going to cut the inseam out like I did with the shorts in another video. And that worked out well. So I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and we'll just cut along the seam here. I'm essentially cutting off my seam allowance and we'll just pull it apart. That didn't work either. So I get discouraged and I'm like, screw it. I am just going to cut this open with a pair of scissors. Just regular scissors, just totally cut it open. I'm cutting along this seam there as close as I possibly can. And I'm just going to cut it open because I was totally over it. I wasn't even going to try to fight with it anymore. And this was a plus size pair of pants. So for me, I don't need to worry about conserving fabric as much with this. So I thought, yeah, let's just get this cut open and get this thing rolling. So as you can see, I'm at the very end here. Everything's opened up. Perfect. So now I'm going to take the pants and I'm going to turn them on their side. So what was the side of your pants will become the front of your skirt. So I'm just going to line them up as best I can. This is a much larger pair of pants than I'm used to working with when I'm working with the toddler pants. So, this is just a little bit more fabric. So I get it all lined up. And then I'm going to grab a skirt that I know fits me well, and I'm going to use it as my template. Now, normally I would just cut a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around, but I know that these pants that I'm using for the skirt have no stretch at all. So I'm going to leave additional, inches around the skirt than I normally would because it's not going to have stretch. The skirt that I'm using as the template is a stretchy skirt, so I have to keep in mind that this isn't going to stretch, so I need to have some more fabric there. And as you can see, everything just falls apart and falls off the counter. Fabulous, whatever, we keep moving on. So then I'm like, okay, I better get my cutting mat down because I need to grab my rotary tool. So I take the rotary tool and I cut it against the fabric there just to line everything up, and I realize it's a dull blade. Fabulous. So as you can see, I'm trying to fix things and make them work and finagle it and, whatever. So now I'm just going to fold it in half and make sure both sides are aligned all the way around. And as you can see, I have a little bit of more fabric on one side than I do the other. So I just take my rotary tool thinking I can cut it open, forgetting how dull my blade is, and then I grab my scissors and actually cut it off. Fabulous. So we're almost done with this part here. And originally I was going to turn this into a skirt, like a skirt by itself. So that's why I have so much fabric cut here, but you'll see later that I decided to change my mind. So this is what it looks like so far, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, there's probably way too much fabric at the top there. So I end up grabbing my scissors and just cutting some of that off because I know that there's too much there. And then I look at it and I'm like, yeah, that's really not straight at all. So let's take the dull rotary tool and try to straighten it out. So I'm like, okay, that looks good. Then I'm like, yeah, no, it doesn't. It's still extremely crooked. So I grab my scissors yet again and I try to straighten it out as best as I possibly can. So now I think I am finally ready to start pinning this together. So I take both pieces, put them right sides together, and I realize I don't have pins, so I go grab my pins, and then I start pinning it down each of the sides. So you're just going to pin both sides down, and that is what is good. That's what you're going to sew together to make it a skirt. So I'm finishing up with the pins here, all pinned up, ready to go. So now everything's sewn together, and after I tried it on, it was way too long, so I decided to cut some more fabric off. I'm like, okay, I can work with this, and then I decide, you know what, I'm just going to add it to the bottom of this dress. So then I realize, obviously, I still have way too much fabric, so then I'm going to cut it yet again so that I can add it to the bottom of this dress. So once I've got that cut off to the length that I think is appropriate, I'm going to line up the seams first. So I'm lining up the back seam there. I'm going to stick a pin in it. I'm going to line up the side seam and pin that in place. And then I'm going to go around to the other side seam, pin that down, and then the other side, which would be the front because this is laying on its back here. So I will go to the front there and pin that seam into place as well, and then I will take my pins and work them into the center parts that I left open. I always want to start with my four corners because I know once those are lined up that I have to work within that area to make everything else work and line up properly. So you just want to line up your seams first. I find that to be a lot easier than trying to pin in one place and go all the way around trying to make everything work. This way you know it's going to work. So once I get both of those sides pinned together, I'm just going to take the dress, turn it right side out so that I can look at it and make sure everything looks good before I take it to my sewing machine and sew it together. Looks good, let's get it sewn. Now that it's all sewn together, we're going to start working on our sleeves. So I grab the top part of the pants, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut out that crotch area first. So we're just going to cut it right down the center there and cut that area out in the front. And then we're also going to cut the area in the back out as well. So we're just going to go right down with your scissors, cut all of that off so that you have two pieces, because of course you need two for your sleeves. So now I'm just going to take my dull rotary tool, but I know it's dull now, so I put a little more pressure so that it'll cut properly, and I just try to straighten all of the sides out. So you're going to do that to both pieces. Just, make sure that you straighten all of the sides out, because there's a lot of excess fabric on there that is not necessary and you're not going to need. Okay, so once I've done that to both pieces, of course, I'm going to then take them and line them up to make sure that they are both the same size, because I don't want one sleeve bigger than the other. And as you can clearly see, I need to cut off some additional fabric on the one side, and then everything should be lined up pretty good for both pieces. A little bit off the bottom there as well. Okay, so I have two identical pieces for my sleeves. So I'm going to go ahead and start pinning them down. And as I start pinning them, I realize that this is not working at all because there's like a bulky part at the top of the sleeve there. I'm noticing that I'm going to have to top stitch this down. So what I'm first going to do is go ahead and take my pins and pin down the inseam part of the sleeve. So I'm going to pin that down, and then I'm going to sew those down, both pieces. I'm going to take it and sew it down with my sewing machine. just to make it a little bit easier to work with. So the only parts that will be open is the top and bottom part of the sleeve. I've already done the one, so I'm going to show you how I did it. So of course, you're just going to line up your seams just like you did with the bottom part. So I'm going to line up the top seam and the bottom seam so that I know that those are in place. Because this is the top part of a plus size pant, I'm going to have a little bit more fabric than I need for this sleeve. So what I end up doing is just, making a pleat at 2 points of the sleeve. So I'm just pinning it down and I'm going to top stitch this. When I say top stitch it, I'm just going to follow the stitch that's already there on the existing dress. I'm just going to put that in the sewing machine and I'm just going to follow that all the way down to stitch the sleeve into place. So this is just me pinning all of the pinning the sleeve into place here, and as you can see, I'm at the point now where I need to add a pleat because I have a lot of extra fabric there. Now you could just cut that fabric off and make it so that it would fit perfectly, but I wanted like an over exaggerated kind of sleeve, so I just decided to add a pleat in the front, and then I'm going to have to also add a pleat in the back. So I just flip it over and do the exact same process. So I'm just going to pin this down on the edge there, and then I'm going to jump to the other side and I'm going to add a pin there, and then I'm just going to add a pleat in the center so that it fits perfectly. Okay, so this is just where I'm adding that additional pleat, and once I do this part, I just take it to the sewing machine and I top stitch that down into place, and then the dress is literally done. It was freezing outside, so I do not have any like terrible modeling for you, but I do have some photos of me in the completed dress. Thanks for watching. So there you have it, guys. That's how I decided to add a feature to a dress with a pair of plus size pants, and it seemed to work out really well for me. I normally don't show you the parts where I'm, working through my brainstorming process, but I thought it might be helpful so that you understand that anytime somebody is making something, there's always going to be struggles. Like, I know these people on YouTube are just showing you, ta-da, here it is, everything turned out perfect. No, I promise you they had struggles during the making process of whatever it is that they're doing. So you just don't see all of those parts, and they're making it look so easy and so simple, and it's not always easy, and it's not always that simple. So I just kind of wanted to show you some of the struggles that I go through when I'm making something, so that I hope that inspires and encourages you to keep trying, because things are always a work in process. Nothing turns out perfect the first time, and after you get the hang of it, even still, you're gonna make mistakes. There's gonna be things that happen. Different materials work differently. Everything's just always a roller coaster ride, but I find it fun, so I hope you do too. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell, like, share, do all of those things to help other people find this channel. Thanks so much for taking the time to check this out, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!